Hey everyone, Seb here and welcome to a new video. For those of you who are new to the channel, I talk about animal rights and usually things related to veganism. And today's subject is, why does everybody hate vegans? Before we get into it, make sure to watch all of the video, especially if you're not vegan, in order to understand why this is happening. And also if you're vegan, in order to understand that this is not really your fault. Well, sometimes it is, but it's mostly not. Now, statistically speaking, most of you who are watching these videos are not subscribed to my channel, and if you want to help me and support me, please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button so that you are aware with these videos. I upload 3 times a week talking everything related to animal rights and veganism. Now, why are vegans hated? What do vegans do to begin with? Veganism in itself has nothing inherently wrong. All that it is trying not to cause unnecessary harm onto other sentient being as far as practically possible. And this is literally in the definition of veganism. But somehow there's a lot of hate towards vegans. I thought about this a lot and I've always wondered, why is it that we get so much hate? Why is it that the hate that we get is nowhere near as the hate that other justice movements get? And after having thought about it for a while, I think I have a theory that holds a good chance to be true. The reason why a lot of people hate vegans is because most of the time they're with a vegan, that vegan is reminding them that there's something that they are doing that actually is in line with the morals of that person who is not vegan, but is also reducing suffering as much as practically possible. Basically, it's similar to having a friend with whom you go to the supermarket and you keep on getting plastic bags when you know you don't have to, and they keep on saying, I don't need a plastic bag. Obviously, the presence of that person is going to make you feel guilty about your act of unnecessarily using plastic bags. The problem here is that we're not just talking about objects, we're talking about animals that are seen as objects. So we're talking about what they are called livestock. They are seen as property because human beings profit off of them, because the exploitation of these animals brings in a lot of money, and the selling of these animals and their body parts and their secretions causes a lot of so-called pleasure to non-vegans. So a non-vegan is a person who is literally unnecessarily paying the suffering and the exploitation of another animal in 99.9% of the cases when they have the option not to. And that is kind of why they don't like vegans, because the presence of a vegan reminds them that they are taking in an act that is horrible. However, there's a reason why a lot of those people whose core values align with veganism are not going vegan, and that's because it demands that they take a certain action that they're not willing to take because they're too lazy or selfish. And neither being lazy nor being selfish is something to be proud of, and a person who reminds you that you're being lazy or selfish is not someone fun to hang out with. Hence the hate. And the more they remind you that you're taking part in unnecessary suffering that your core values go against, the more you're gonna hate them. This is similar to someone identifying as being anti-racist or anti-sexist when they have already held these views. You see, it's easy to call yourself a human rights advocate or an equality advocate when you have believed in those things because of the environment that you've grown up in. But when you're not applying that same logic of justice towards other animals, you'd have to ask yourself if you would actually have adopted these views regarding human rights had you grown up in an environment that made you racist. See, a lot of people think that they are doing this noble thing by fighting for human rights and therefore they don't have to go vegan. But to actually know if they would have changed their minds had they grown up in another environment that had made them anti-human rights to begin with, they have to check what their stance is with animal rights. Because the same logic that we use in order to grant other human beings who are different to us basic moral rights can be applied to other animals as well. Similar to us, most animals have a subjective experience of life, and not only do they have their own perception, but they're also conscious of it. And although we are very different from some of these animals, we are not different in the ways that matter. As in, the differences that we have do not really hold a moral weight when it comes to the argument of whether or not they deserve basic moral rights, such as bodily autonomy, not being harmed, not being owned, and not being exploited. You see, the reason why other human beings are equal to us is not because we're exactly the same. Of course we're not. There's humans of all backgrounds, of all IQ levels, talents, gifts, skin color, eye color, and so many other factors. However, these differences do not hold any moral value, meaning we cannot use these differences as a reason to not give other human beings basic moral rights and respecting them. The same thing applies to other animals. Yes, we are different in so many ways, but not in the ways that matter. And that is exactly why a lot of people hate vegans, because they make them realize that these vegans were brought up in an environment that was initially inherently anti-animal rights, and when they were given the information, they changed. So the answer is simple. If animal rights is not making you go vegan, chances are that you would have never become a human rights advocate if you hadn't grown up in an environment that already made you pro-human rights. Because let's face it, the argument is the same and so is the logic. The differences do not hold any moral weight. Respecting others' sentient life, bodily autonomy, protection from being owned or enslaved or exploited are the basics of human rights, and all we have to do is apply the same to other animals. And if you are not taking that action, then you have the answer of why you hate vegans. Vegans remind you that you are contributing to a tremendous amount of suffering onto other animals, and you are not taking the decision to change that, and that is why you don't like vegans. Now, this does not mean that every single vegan that you hate for this reason. There could be many other reasons, but this is something that I have seen to be very present with a lot of people, both in my personal life and online. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you would like to support my work, check out my website sebalex.org, and also please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you again.